Welcome back to the channel, trainers. My name is Oro Chris. I am your catching coach. And this weekend, from Friday, June 12th at 8 a.m. local time until Monday, June 15th at 10 p.m. local time, the Lati twins, Latios and Latias, are going to be returning to 5-star raids. In this video, we're going to very briefly take a look at the top raid counters for these Pokemon, and then take a look at their place in both the PvE as well as PvP meta. Let's get into it. Now, Latios, as a dragon and psychic type Pokemon, it is going to have a max CP, 100% CP for the raid encounter is going to be a 2178. And for a weather boosted, we're looking at a 2723 for that 100%. So 2178, 2723. Weather boosted is going to be a dragon and psychic type, weather boosted in windy weather. Available moveset: Dragon Breath and Zen Headbutt for fast moves, and then the charge moves: Dragon Claw, Psychic, and Solar Beam. As far as difficulty, as far as the raid counters are concerned, Dragon Claw going to be the most challenging because it's going to be a very quick charging and spammable move, and it's going to be hitting for super effective damage into the best counters into Latios, that being the dragon type Pokemon. Solar Beam, easiest one, pretty easy attack to dodge against, as well as doubly resisted by a lot of the dragon type Pokemon like Dragonite and Salamence. And here with the raid graph, we can see that the top DPS, and again, the Y-axis has the damage per second rating. So the higher up a Pokemon is, the quicker they're doing damage. And then the total damage output, the further to the right that they are, the more bulky, the more resilient, the longer lasting, the more total damage output they're going to be doing. And as we can see, the Shadow Pokemon recently buffed. Shadow Pokemon have a 20% boost to their attack, but they have a 20% reduction in their defense stat. And as a result, they're going to be not lasting out as long. That's why they're here kind of in the middle of the pack. But because they are dealing out so much more damage, here Shadow Salamence, Shadow Dragonite, and Shadow Weavile respectively, they are going to be dealing out so much damage per second that their total DPO still is fairly respectable, even though they're taking a little bit more damage in return. Now, I should mention the top damage per second winner, Shadow Salamence. That is a legacy Salamence, so that's going to be an elite TM used to get Outrage on that Shadow Pokemon. If you do not have an elite TM available and you don't want to wait until December when they hopefully bring back the Community Day moves for evolving Pokemon for Community Day movesets, then this is not going to be available to you for the present period. As far as non-Shadow Pokemon are concerned, Rayquaza and Salamence winning out here. But as far as total damage output, we can see that Dialga absolutely slaying it. Dialga as a Steel type and Dragon type Pokemon. That Steel type going to give it resistance to Psychic type attacks, which, as we previously mentioned, Latios may be using. It's going to give it resistance to grass type attacks. Dragon types are resistant to grass type attacks as well, so it's going to have immunity to resistance to grass type attacks. And then that Steel typing going to negate what would have been a weakness to dragon type attacks. So it's only taking neutral damage from Dragon Breath and Dragon Claw from Latios. So doubly resisting the Solar Beam, resisting the Psychic, and only taking neutral damage from Dragon Breath and Dragon Claw. As a result, Dialga has amazing total damage output. That Steel typing really helping it in that regard. For Latias, the sister of the Eon duo, we can see a level 20, 100%. We're looking for a 2006 CP Pokemon. For the weather boost, again, same typing as Latios, Psychic and Dragon, so 2507 is going to be the perfect IV CP for this Pokemon in windy weather. Available moveset: Dragon Breath and Zen Headbutt. And then charge moves, we're looking at Outrage, Psychic, and Thunder. So we're trading out the Solar Beam in for the Thunder with Latias, and then keeping Psychic, and then having Outrage, a little bit harder hitting Dragon type move instead of the Dragon Claw that was on Latios just a moment ago. Some familiar faces from what we just saw with Latios. We've got Shadow Salamence again, the top DPS earner. Again, you're going to need to use an Elite TM to get that Outrage on that Pokemon if you want to use it. Shadow Dragonite, top, and then Shadow Weavile, traditional Rayquaza, and Salamence. Salamence here, the non-Shadow variant, but I'm going to need to have Outrage. You can go with both moves. Go with Dragon Tail, Draco Meteor, unlock that secondary move, and have a Community Day evolved Salamence with Outrage. That's going to be the best of all worlds, but then we've also got Dragonite. And again, we see Dialga coming in very strong with that total damage output, leading the pack in terms of total damage output. As far as DPS is concerned, in the PvE context, in raiding, so I've selected Haxorus at random. The rationale, the reason for it: Haxorus is a mono dragon type Pokemon. To evaluate the overall dragon type attacking power for these Pokemon for Latios and Latias, we want to see what dragon types hit for super effective into. They only hit effective into a dragon type. But if you're hitting into a dragon type for super effective damage, you want to know how does that compare to other things that hit dragon types for super effective damage. So Haxorus, as a mono dragon type, it's going to be weak to dragon, ice, and fairy type attacks. And as we can see, ranking for DPS, considering the best available moveset for each of these Pokemon, we're not going to have the same Pokemon with multiple movesets coming in top. Shadow Salamence, Shadow Dragonite, not yet released Black Kyurem, Rayquaza, and then Salamence, of course. Those two Pokemon, really the top of DPS before we had the introduction of the Shadow Pokemon. Black Kyurem and White Kyurem not available in-game yet. Haxorus itself coming in with Dragon Tail and Dragon Claw. Definitely going to be a top contender when we are able to get a few more of those available in the wild. And then Palkia, Garchomp, and the Gen 1 King Dragonite coming in at the top of, or bottom rather, of page 1. To find the Latis, however, we need to go to page 2, where we've got Dialga beating it out, Reshiram. Reshiram is currently still in raids, even during this raid weekend. If you are not familiar with raid counters or Reshiram's place in the PvE and PvP meta, we have got videos covering those topics here on the channel. I will put a link to that up above. And then we finally find Latios here, barely edging out Shadow Flygon. Ouch. So as far as a dragon type attacker, not going to be the top pick in terms of PvE content. Latios similarly falling even more behind. Latios is a little bit thicker Pokemon, a little bit more bulky, a little bit harder hitting move, however, but even with that considered, Latios is going to be, neither of the Latis are going to be really leading the pack in terms of dragon type damage. As far as their psychic type attacking prowess, I have selected Toxicroak as a potential target. The reason being, psychic types are going to be hitting fighting types for super effective damage. They're going to be hitting poison types for super effective damage. So Toxicroak is going to be doubly weak to psychic type attacks. That's going to help us elevate those attackers as far as the rankings are concerned. And as we can see, Mewtwo with Confusion and Psystrike slaying it in terms of total, in terms of DPS and total damage output. But we've got all of the Shadow Pokemon here, Alakazam, Espeon, and then finally at the bottom of page 1, we do have Latios. But just look at the difference in DPS between something like a Mewtwo or some of these Shadow Pokemon, 71.867. Now again, these numbers are unique to the Toxicroak matchup, but you can judge their overall effectiveness as a percentage basis compared to Latios coming in at 56.613. If we also consider the potential bulk or tankiness of these Pokemon, we can rank by DPS times TDO to the third. That gives a little bit heavier weighting to the DPS stat, because in raiding, that's typically what is most important. You're trying to beat out the raid clock, but it also factors in the Pokemon's overall bulk. And even with that factored, Mewtwo again going to be killing it. Latios does rise up, does become the first non-Mewtwo, non-Shadow Pokemon in terms of the overall rankings. But that's going to be a hefty investment. Psychic types typically not, awesome against Pokemon like Machamp in Tier 3 raids, but in terms of Tier 4 and Tier 5 raids, Psychic types typically do not fare as well. So overall, I cannot in good conscience recommend these Pokemon in terms of PvE content, especially for raiding. Latios has a potential place as a gym sweeper, but again, investing in a legendary where you're going to need rare candy or a lot of premium passes to get those get that Pokemon powered up, not going to be the best pick for that as well. In terms of PvP content, let's head over to pvpoke.com to very quickly take a look at how they place in each of the 3 Go Battle League metas. So we are here in the Great League over at pvpoke.com. Latios beating out Latias. Part of the reason being Dragon Claw as a potential bait move. It's going to be a much faster charging than a move like Psychic, and as a result, it can then launch, after it's got that Dragon Claw out of the way, can launch the harder hitting Psychic type attack to pull out some wins. But overall, these Pokemon with the prevalence, especially in the Open Great League, with Pokemon like Azumarill, Altaria, can't in good conscience recommend these Pokemon. Moreover, because these are CP restricted leagues at 1500 CP, you would need to get one of these Pokemon from a research breakthrough box. It would have to be that level 15 research Pokemon and trade for it to get it under that CP threshold for Latios. Latias can be obtained in a research box below the 1500 CP threshold. In the Ultra League, Latios a little bit better ranked, 112th overall, as well as Latias. We can see some of those matchups here, beating Venusaur, the elemental starters, Pokemon like Charizard or Typhlosion. One notable win I can offer is Mewtwo, Armored Mewtwo, typically running Confusion, Psystrike, and Dynamic Punch in the Ultra League. Because Latios is a Psychic type, it's going to be resisting all of those attacks, and therefore is able to pull out a very important win against Armored Mewtwo. But because of the prevalence of those Charmers, Pokemon like Granbull, Clefable, Togekiss, as well as Giratina Altered Form and Registeel in the Ultra League meta, neither Latias or Latios are really going to be key winners in that particular league. Now, as for the Master League, this is one place where I think there is some potential play for Latios in PvP. Ranked 25th overall, and as we can see, having some key wins against Pokemon like Giratina, Kyogre, Giratina Altered Form, Snorlax, and Rhyperior. And one particularly common team in Season 1 was a Giratina lead with Rhyperior and Kyogre in the back. The rationale for the team, you lead with that Giratina. One, it's got a lot of positive matchups, or at least does a lot of neutral damage with a move like Shadow Ball. Bait out shields, can at least get a solid matchup for the most part. But if you catch something like a Kyogre on the other side, the opponent's going to swap out into their safe switch. The most prevalent safe switch in Season 1, as well as Master League generally, is Dialga. So when the opponent swaps out of that bad matchup against your Giratina, and they swap into their Dialga, the Dialga now is when you are going to bring in your Rhyperior and absolutely wail on their Dialga with your Mud Slaps, to the point where you don't even need to launch a charge move, but you're going to come out of that matchup with so much energy ready to go, and their meta king Dialga down for the count. But as we can see, Latios beats out Kyogre, Rhyperior, and Giratina Origin Form. That entire team loses to a Latios. If we take a look at Latios in the Master League meta, admittedly, only 13 wins in the Master League meta against the 28 Pokemon selected by pvpoke.com as what it considers the Master League meta. But the wins that it has, Garchomp, fairly common in the Master League and becoming more common. Raikou got that buff to Wild Charge in the Season 1 rebalance. Pokemon like Conkeldurr, Machamp, a lot of folks run fighting types to counter Dialga. A Psychic type like Latios is going to be winning out those matchups. As we mentioned, beats Giratina Origin Form, beats Kyogre, beats Landorus. A lot of folks run Landorus to counter, or the ground types to counter Dialga. This Pokemon, Latios, is going to be beating all of those. And it's not going to have the potential loss that a flying type like Dragonite would have against a Rock Slide that comes in at the wrong or in an opportune time. Here it doesn't have any super effective hits from a Pokemon like Landorus or Rhyperior, especially Rhyperior running Surf, or if Rhyperior is running Superpower, going to be resisting all of that. Same thing with Swampert. So doesn't have the most wins, but it does have enough key wins that, given the right team building and the right synergy, I think it can have a place in the Master League meta. Latias, however, because it's a little bit more bulky, can't dish out the damage that it needs to succeed. I don't think that it has well situated in any of the 3 PvP leagues. Now, one thing I will mention before we close. Both of these Pokemon, Latios and Latias, in the main series games, there is this thing called Mega Evolution. A Mega Evolution is an evolution in a battle that is temporary, and after or during the battle, they revert once they faint or once they are taken out of the matchup. Depending on how Pokemon Go implements Mega Evolutions, it may be worth considering how are these Pokemon going to fare once their Megas are evolved. Similarly, both of these Pokemon have a signature move. For Latios, it is Luster Purge. For Latias, it is Mist Ball. So, down the road, given the stats of these moves, it may be enough to elevate them in the PvE or PvP context to be successful. That is certainly what happened with Lucario and Aurasphere when it was introduced. That was Lucario's signature move, and it shot it up to the top ranking as far as fighting type damage for a certain period of time when that move was introduced. So get out there, raid these Pokemon this weekend, especially I think Latios. It potentially has some play in the Master League meta. If you get a really good IV version, give it a try. If you do try it and you have some success, leave a comment down below. I would love to hear what team composition works for you if you do go the route of trying Latios in the Master League meta. But for now, thanks for watching, and as always, happy catching.